we're going to kick things off here. Good morning and welcome to the webinar, How to Align and Inspire a Remote Team. My name is Kevin Shively. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing at Ally, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour. But before we get started, some really quick housekeeping. So we're joined by some incredible speakers today who have a wealth of knowledge that they're going to share about managing remote workflows and the processes and tools that they use to make sure that operation is seamless. And I likely speak for a lot of you on the call when I say we have a ton of questions for them. So please make sure your questions are in the Q&A panel. I can't promise we're going to get to all of them, but we're going to do our best. The webinar will be recorded, so you can come back and watch it again and again. You can send it to colleagues who are grappling with the same thing. Or when you get to the end of the Netflix rabbit hole, you can just put it on and watch it with your family. It should be some great content. So like I said, we've got some incredible guests with us today, and I'm very excited to introduce you to them. So they're each going to share a bit about themselves, and I'd love to start with Emilie to tell us a little bit about herself and Gitlab, where she is an internal strategy consultant. Emilie, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Kevin, for having me. Like you said, my name's Emilie Schario. I've been at Gitlab for 2 years. I joined as the first data analyst, moved into a data engineering role, and now I'm in a strategy role on the chief of staff team as an internal strategy consultant. I've spent pretty much my entire career since I graduated from college working remotely, where in my first role, I would go into an office, but the team I worked with, the product team, was all remote. And then ever since then, I've not worked in an office because the realities of my personal life, my partner's career is geographically bound, and I spend a lot of time following him around. I knew that I could only work remotely, and Gitlab has been a really great opportunity for me to grow my career and work remotely at the same time. Today, we're 1,200 people. We're the largest all-remote organization in the world, and we're across 65 countries. So we have a team member in most places and in, I think, every time zone.
Wow, that's awesome. And fully remote before we all wound up going fully remote. So a ton that we can learn from you, I'm sure. Looking forward to that. Thank you. And up next, we have Joe Martin, who is CloudApp's VP of Marketing and Strategy. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Gitlab was the hipster remote group, but we're all trying to just keep up with them. Really excited to be, next to Emilie on the screen here. Gitlab is obviously legendary in remote, and also I love that they have open documentation. Is really helpful in developing the internal handbooks that I've helped put together at CloudApp. So CloudApp is a visual communication tool, allows you to capture and share screenshots, GIFs, and videos instantly. We have an integration with GitHub, GitLab, Slack, lots of places that you are. I've been here about a year and kind of took on the mantle of starting a marketing program at CloudApp. Prior to that, I was at Adobe for over 7 years, doing lots of different things. Actually started as an analyst like Emilie and did a lot of external facing reports on data and kind of built some fun things with Adobe. So it's been a ride. Definitely, CloudApp supports remote teams. I've led remote teams before, but this is definitely far from any remote experience I've had. Hopefully, we were talking earlier, my kids don't join the webinar, but no promises there.
Yeah, likewise. And the same is going to be true for our final introductee, Ally's own VP of Operations, Matt Volm. Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself and why I roped you into joining us today.
Yeah, hey everyone. So like Kevin said, my name's Matt Volm. I'm the VP of Business Operations at Ally. Ally is OKR software that helps keep remote teams connected. So obviously something that is hyper critical given the environment that we're in today. And beyond the fact that I like Kevin and that I think he's a really nice guy, I was also roped into the webinar today because at Ally, I run our internal OKR process. So I experience all of the challenges that all of our customers do when it comes to implementing and adopting something like OKR framework, but I also get to see all of the benefits and all of the amazing things that come in adopting OKRs and the framework, and just the ability that they have to align teams and provide transparency across the company, which is obviously something else that is more important now than it ever has been, given the current market conditions. So really excited to be here, and glad to be chatting with Joe and Emilie and you all as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. So, and thank you to all three of you. Really excited for this conversation to dig in. I want to set the stage a little bit. So there's an elephant in the room that we need to address, obviously. This isn't the typical remote environment. The COVID-19 virus has really not only just reshaped the way that we work, it's reshaped the entire way that we live. It's added a lot of pressure and stress, and some uncertainty that every single person on your team and probably yourself are facing every single day. So even a lot of small stuff is challenging. As Joe mentioned, his kids may run in. I have a toddler watching Mickey Mouse Club right behind me right now, so I'm praying it keeps him distracted through this entire thing, because we don't have childcare anymore. Side note, if you do hear Goofy laughing or a child singing about dinosaurs, just think about how it adds to the ambiance of doing a remote work webinar. So this is all good stuff. And with all of these added distractions and stress, your employees and yourself are at a much bigger risk of feeling disconnected, and feeling disconnected not only from each other, but from their work. So we see this manifested in a few ways. Number one, there is a lack of transparency that we were very lucky to have when there's a more natural and free-flowing environment in your office. And now we teeter-totter between over-communicating and under-communicating by adding extra meetings or micromanaging things, and then sometimes just developing a lack of trust as a result. So the ability to collaborate and stay aligned is huge, but there's a new wrinkle here. So we can't hop in a conference room and whiteboard out an idea or catch up in the hallway, but we can focus and prioritize and make sure the things that we're working on are aligned, and that we are thinking about things the right way and thinking about each other's priorities as well. So it's harder than it's ever been, but we have some experts on the call today who can help us do it the right way. So let's dig in a little bit. And I want to start with a question for Emilie, because Gitlab has such an interesting background as the world's largest fully remote company. So tell me a bit about what you see as some of the common pitfalls and problems that folks will run into, even just when it's an individual joining a remote team like Gitlab. And what are some of the best ways they can address those?
Yeah, I think the first myth to bust is that remote work is just like the same work you do in an office at home, right? A remote meeting is taking a meeting from a conference room and putting it in a Zoom room. That's not the way remote work works. So there are different phases to the transition to remote work. I'll drop a link in the chat as soon as I'm done chatting, but it starts by doing that. You move from a conference room to a Zoom room. Instead of a water cooler, you move to the random channel in Slack. And you use a lot of GIFs, right? So you do things you did in person and you move them into not in-person communication. And then the second step is when you start to realize, oh, like there are efficiencies to be had by working in this way. So you realize that you don't need a stand-up meeting every morning anymore. You could just have a stand-up bot in Slack. Or you realize you don't need that planning meeting every week anymore. You can just, reprioritize your issues. Then the third step is when you realize like the real magic with remote work is when you enable people to work asynchronously. So when people don't have to be on a call to get things done, or they don't have to be in a call to whiteboard, then people kind of come to the table whenever they're at their best. Whether that's collaborating in an issue asynchronously, or developing an idea asynchronously, or working on a new feature, whatever it might be, but doing it when you don't have to be doing it at the same time allows people to work whenever they're at their best. And what we're seeing right now with a lot of our families are sharing a lot of the same difficulties you talked about, Kevin, not having childcare, or if they have some childcare, not all childcare, or they have a spouse who's also working who they're handing off responsibilities with. And so they can't work like a 9 to 5 in their normal time zone, whatever that might be. And asynchronous work makes it really easy for you to work a split shift, or to work a later shift, or an earlier shift, or whatever combo of 15-minute increments throughout the day that you need to do to get your work done. So I think if we lay that out, like the first is you move from a conference room to online. The second, you move to more efficient. The third is when you really leverage asynchronous. And then the fourth is when you start to really be intentional about remote work. So that's where you start scheduling things like coffee chats to really build that culture and relationship with team members. You measure results or your output instead of, time spent in a seat. You eliminate your office if you have one. That's when you're really committed. I think teams that what we're seeing is a lot of teams are in phase 1 right now. They can't go into the office, so they've moved to the internet. Great, that's a first step. And what we would really love to help teams do, and what we're trying to build out resources to make better and make easier, is moving to those next phases in the process. So it's definitely not easy. We've learned a lot of things the hard way. The one tip that I can share, if I had to only give one, it's going to be to write everything down. So write your thought process. How did you come to a decision? Don't just say, this is what we're doing. Share that this is how you got to that thought process. And that way, when Sally or Joe logs on 12 hours later in an opposite time zone, they know not just what decision was made, but why that decision was made. And they can be much more informed when they comment, respond, or implement it.
Those are great tips. I think writing everything down is super important. Matt and I were joking about a meeting we had yesterday where we looked back at our notes after the meeting, and basically it said, "Oh, Sydney's going to do marketing," and we had both cut it off there because we were so busy and focused on other things. Being able to refer back to some of that is super helpful. I want to touch on 2 of the points you said. One of them was just creating time to have that human connection with your colleagues and with the people that you're working with every day. I think as we're all feeling a little bit isolated right now, that's important as well for our own mental health and well-being. But it creates a more cohesive culture. So you shared a quick story before we jumped on about some postcards that you were sending. I would love to hear a little bit more about that for the people who have joined the webinar. And then I have one more question after that.
Yeah, so I live in Savannah, Georgia, on the East Coast of the United States, and I am a person who still likes to send paper mail. So I ordered these postcards, and I keep them in my house of the state of Georgia, and Savannah's over here. And anytime a colleague has one of their kids hop onto the chat, the first thing I do after the call is DM them on Slack, "Hey, can I send your kid a postcard?" And it's a great way to kind of build relationships with people's kids, or sometimes I show off my dog and make him do a funny trick. And it's, at the end of the day, we're people. Like, yes, we're colleagues, but we're also humans, and we have these other things going on in our lives. And some people will join GitLab and not meet a colleague in person for a year, 18 months, but we still develop these relationships. The manager who hired me into GitLab just went on parental leave at the end of last month. He had a kid, how exciting. And I am genuinely excited for him, despite the fact that we've really only hung out in person maybe 3 weeks total over the last 2 years that we've worked together. So it does require a serious level of intentionality to build these relationships when you're doing it over Zoom. Like, you have to actually put a calendar invite on the calendar to make the call happen. But the emotional return on that the relationship that you build with your colleagues is really phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, in the second point you made that I think is worth digging into, and I'd love to hear from Joe and Matt on this one as well, is talking about asynchronous work. So, this was an adjustment for me when I joined Ally, because half of our company is in Chennai, India, half of our company is in Bellevue, Washington, and so there's this 24-hour work cycle, and getting myself used to not getting that Slack response right away when I needed something, or waiting until the next day to hear back about a project that we were working on, took some getting used to. So Joe, I know you've worked with remote teams before. Matt, you pull the puppet strings on how both of our offices work together. Joe, tell us a little bit about your experience with this, and then Matt will ask you to dig in as well.
Yeah, sure. So about 18 months ago, even 2 years ago, I started managing a lot of resources in India, similar to you. And living in Utah, India is exactly 12 hours ahead. So no one was ever happy on a phone call, right? Like, it's either early in the morning or late at night, and it's not a super great experience. So I actually discovered CloudApp, and used it pretty religiously at Adobe, along with a lot of other people. And it was exactly what Emilie said. It's really an async tool, where I could record thoughts with video. We'd still try and meet real time on Zoom, or like at Adobe was Blue Jeans, every other week or so, just as a touch base. But we could record videos and record our screen and kind of mark up presentations and kind of combine that collaboration doc. We used SharePoint and Google Docs, along with videos and visuals, from the screenshots or the videos or the GIFs, was really a great connecting point. And then, like, building on Emilie as well, it was very crucial when I was managing that team, and also here at CloudApp, where we're more than 50% distributed, to create those opportunities to connect. So we have like a Slack book club, and when March Madness is running, we do a tournament, and we try and connect where people enjoy. We have some people that like set up like a D&D group, and they do this, D&D experience. And actually, like, it was really funny. We had a company offsite, the first one we've done, right before all of this happened. It was in like January, before any things were super serious. And we had all this stuff to do, and we ended up playing board games most of the time, which was really fun. Like, it was, totally non-tech, and it was just a fun way to connect and be really informal. And I think that's a crucial piece too, is meeting in person when you're able to, whether that's once a quarter, once a year, at some point, connecting kind of the virtual to the in-person is really a critical piece.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back to those pieces. Cool. And so, Matt, you came into Ally and really helped build an infrastructure for connecting to offices. Tell me a bit about what that experience is like, and what some of the challenges you didn't expect were.
Yeah, so the time zone thing is a huge challenge. I think similar to what Joe mentioned, I love leveraging video communication whenever possible, and then obviously things like Google Docs, Google Sheets, is really critical to being on the same page with everyone. The other thing that I will second or third is what Emilie mentioned, in terms of not just communicating the decision that you made, but how you arrived at that decision, I think is critical as well. And it's one of the reasons why I like using video. It's a lot easier to talk through, to share, record your screen, mark things up, as opposed to just typing or writing it down. I think it's also easier for folks on the other side to digest. But those things will save you from that 30-minute meeting that you would have otherwise needed. And it gives you that ability to work in separate time zones where no one wants to be up at 6 a.m. on a meeting or on a call at 6 p.m. at night. So those things I think are critical. And then also getting that personal connection, I think, with your coworkers and your colleagues is really, really critical. Like I'm trying to think back to the last time that I had an interaction with someone above the age of 4 who was not my wife. And I'm struggling with that, like an in-person interaction, right? But my 2 kids and my wife, they're the ones that I see in person. So some of the things that I've tried to do at Ally, and that I think we've been doing a fairly good job at, are we've created some dedicated Slack channels where people can, say, post pictures of their kids, post pictures of their dogs, their cats. Gives us that kind of personal element that didn't exist before. We also started this fun kind of, I'll call it a contest, where each employee will ask a family member to describe what they think they do for work for a living. And the responses are pretty hilarious. For example, my younger brother said that because I'm in business, I must do a lot of things with charts and graphs. And that my job is making sure they're going in the right direction. Kevin's wife thought that he works for a company that helps other businesses track things. That is literally what she said. And some of the responses have been really funny, but again, they give you that kind of personal connection, and just give you a view into kind of the real people that you're working with on any given day. So I think the more that you can do there to feel connected, I think the better your performance will be on the business side as well, especially during these really tough, challenging times.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, and oh, go ahead. Sorry, Emilie.
Yeah, if I could tag on to that, talking about transitioning to asynchronous communication, I think one of the really, because we talk about it and everyone's like, yes, asynchronous, this is amazing. And a really tactical thing people could start doing, if you walk out of this call and you're like, how do I start working more asynchronously? Stop presenting in meetings. So when you have 5 people on a call, you don't need to go through a board deck or any deck, right? Instead, what you should do is before the call, record yourself going through the deck. 24 hours before, send it out and ask everyone to review it on their own time, so that when you get into that meeting, you can only do the things you can do when you have those 5 people on the call, which is have a great discussion on it.
And don't worry about takes and being perfect. I think video is very challenging in that, like, one thing I challenge my team to do is, like, we have this 30-second vlog about the blog before every blog post, and it's just a quick breakdown using CloudApp to record. This is what the blog is about. And there's a lot of ums and ahs and people walking in the background and craziness going on. It's like, video, let's remove the stigma of video and do, like, I always say, one take Joe. Like, I always try and do everything in one take, and sometimes it's terrible, and sometimes I have to, like, come back inside and be like, okay, sorry about that. I totally went in a different course, but it's one take. Like, don't worry about mistakes. We're all human, and make video, just like you would a real-time call.
Yeah, great stuff, guys. So I want to dig in on the video piece and the asynchronous communication, specifically with a question for you, Joe. One of the, I think, things that we noticed in our first week where everybody went fully remote is that we over-indexed on meetings. So we were scheduling Zoom meetings for every conversation that would have happened in a hallway. And I think that's a challenge I've heard other people run into. And I also know that CloudApp has helped eliminate some meetings for us in a variety of different ways, where how the tool works. But I also know you guys have seen some cool data around this and how people are using the software. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you've seen there and what you've heard from folks.
Yeah, so we saw crazy growth over the last 3-4 weeks. A lot of people kind of coming in, signing up, checking it out. A lot of businesses expanding and being like, this is a key piece of us having to, move everybody remote. And I got kind of data analyst-y, and worked with someone else on our team, and we crunched a whole bunch of data and found some interesting numbers that we'll probably be sharing through some PR channels this week, and thought I would share them here as well. But we've seen already in the 3 weeks since, kind of 4 weeks, 3.5 since all this kind of went down, about a 2.5 increase in video usage during just any time. And then what the two kind of most interesting points to me, though, were nearly a 2x increase in usage during the morning commute time. So 8 to 9 or 7 to 9, depending on if you're in the Bay Area or not. And then also after normal working hours, a 2x increase in usage. So it kind of shows that, like, we're all kind of going through this funny transition where it's like, at work, I'm fortunate that my wife, started to stay home. And so we only have one person working. But if I hear like craziness and screaming and crying and yelling, like at work, I would not hear that. And I would just kind of go about my day. But here I'm like, okay, this is getting a little crazy. I should go help. So that eliminates my work time. It pulls me out of the zone that I was in. And so there's a little bit of difference in, I'm working later than I was before, and I don't have this more normal working hours that I had before. We've also seen more than 2x increase of usage by executives in particular. So it's kind of like this top-down communication that people are trying to find this new normal that we may be in for the next 2 months, who knows? And that's really spiked kind of the increase of this async video connection.
That's great. Yeah, I will say our CEO Vetri has used CloudApp to send some communication to us that is outside normal working hours, because he doesn't want our team to feel pressured to respond to a Slack or whatever it might be.
Awesome. Yeah.
What are some of the other ways, Emilie? Let's start with Emilie, that you've seen communication happen via tools like CloudApp or others that your team will use to stay connected when working in different time zones?
Yeah, our I guess remote work stack, for lack of better phrasing, I would start with Slack is where we use for kind of chat. One of the things that I think really drills into our mind that Slack is for ephemeral chat is that our messages disappear after 90 days. So anything that needs to last has to live in GitLab. We use GitLab, the product, to run GitLab, the company. And we don't just do that in like engineering and product management, but things like our accounting team closes the books every month using GitLab. Our marketing team plans out events and initiatives using GitLab. My team plans out the things we're working on using GitLab. So GitLab, Slack, Zoom for video. I had a Zoom call with my mom this weekend, which was a little weird because Zoom feels like my office space since it's how I've been working for the last couple of years. But those three are primarily, we use Gmail mostly for external emails. And then I think one of our secret sauce things is our GitLab handbook. So about.gitlab.com/handbook is our handbook. It's
best.
Thank you. It's public and it's available under Creative Commons. And it is, we believe our mission is everyone can contribute, and making it as easy as possible for people to do that. So our handbook covers like, hey, how do you expense your internet when you expense your internet every month? From what documents do you have to submit when you join the company, to when someone has a baby and you want to send them a gift, what do you do? And it just covers everything. And that gives people a place to go when they need to find the answer to their question. So, and the great thing about the handbook being public is you get to use the greatest search engine in the world against it. So site:/about.gitlab.com/handbook, whatever phrase you're looking for, and you're probably going to get it on the first result. I think those things really set us up to continue to grow in an incredible way. I mean, over the last year, we tripled the company, and we've continued to work this way. So, Joe, I'm curious, what experiences have you had with the handbook?
So the handbook it was actually like a very nice piece so let's go back a teeny bit. So I took the role at CloudApp, and we were kind of in the middle of fundraising, and so I didn't really have a team for a little bit of time, which was actually nice to have some time to develop strategy and kind of test out some stuff before I knew who I wanted to hire. But there was not a ton of like internal documentation. And so I wanted to start from the beginning of like documenting everything and being really aggressive at documenting. And you know, our CEO and COO were kind of the same way. Like, let's start this company being overly documented and making sure we have process for everything. So as I was like, oh man, how do I write down this social strategy or webinar strategy from scratch? And I started like, you know, writing some stuff. I was like, oh man, there's got to be someone out there that has done this, and I could just like piggyback off of them for some of the more technical stuff. And so I did some searches, and I was like, oh yeah, GitLab has like everything. So I just like stumbled upon GitLab's marketing sections and pulled, you know, a bunch of stuff from there and like made it, you know, my own. But it was helpful to like not have to write, you know, 5,000 words on random internal documentation, but like it's always easier to edit than it is to create, right? I mean, that's why there's so many more less content creators than there are content consumers. So yeah, I'm a big believer. I tell everybody to check it out that I run into, and I really appreciate that you guys put that out there. And I also love that I stumbled upon someone from GitLab in the marketing department the other day, and is the first time I'd seen like this massive document on himself. And I'm sure you all do that, but it was the first time I had seen like this cool, you know, documentation on background of this person.
Yeah, I think the idea of like write everything down beyond just, you know, justifying decisions, which we talked about earlier, it also forces you to more clearly articulate what that strategy might look like, right? Not just, hey, here's the process we're going to follow now, but here's where we're going with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have to be a lot more thoughtful. I agree.
I know exactly where I'm going after this this call. That playbook sounds incredible. I will say when I asked Emilie to join this webinar, you created I'm not sure the right vernacular here, but a ticket in GitLab, an issue in GitLab. Yeah. And being able to dive in and see your interaction with the marketing team and what their process was like. I took some notes on that for how we can build a similar type of process. And then I did drill into your, you know, long bio in GitLab about all of the stuff that you've been working on, just as I was kind of curious about how the product worked. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And I'll tell everyone on the call, Kevin saw that this was approved for my marketing team before I did, because that issue was public, which is pretty awesome.
Yep. Yeah. As we're about to build out a partner marketing function, partner marketing team, that specifically resonated with me. The fact that there's so much transparency for the folks that you're working with is huge. Okay, I want to pivot a little bit, but continue talking about transparency and some of that alignment that GitLab helps create as well, but in the context of OKRs. So Matt, you run our OKR process at Ally, which is an OKR software company, which means that sometimes you annoyingly call me out for misalignment of specific objectives or the metrics that I'm using to track them, or not following through on something. But I think that there is a ton of value in that type of infrastructure, both philosophically, but also as a software that can come to a remote team specifically as people try to navigate these types of waters. So can you quickly explain for the audience what OKRs are, but then also as the person responsible for operational efficiency and alignment, has it actually helped? Am I on the right page there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Kevin, you're giving yourself some extra credit there by saying it's just sometimes that I call you out, but I'll end there. Yeah, so for those of you on the call, OKR stands for objective and key results. In short, OKRs are a framework to help you set goals and execute against those goals. So your objective is typically something lofty, like you want to grow your revenue base by 4x over the course of the year, or you want to cure malaria. And your key results are going to be how you measure whether or not you've achieved that particular objective. And at least internally for Ally, and really for our customers as well, the things that OKRs help with, I guess I look at across two particular things or areas. So the first is just alignment and transparency. So at any given point throughout the day, the week, the month, the quarter, the year, I can go into Ally, I can look at exactly what my team's objectives are, what my individual OKRs are. I could see Kevin's OKRs, I could see the marketing team's OKRs, sales, customer success, the organization. So there's just a huge amount of transparency, and I can also understand how the work that I'm doing on any given day contributes to the company's broader objectives and how those are aligned and in sync with the company and with other teams as well. And the second piece that's really critical is just understanding performance. So before I had worked at a company that had leveraged OKRs, and I'm sure this may sound familiar to some others on the webinar as well, but have you ever experienced where you get to the end of the week or the month or the quarter and you're like, what exactly did I get done? Or what did I do over the last quarter? And what am I doing? What am I supposed to be doing or focused on for the next week or month or quarter, right? You're kind of in this space of floating around and not really understanding how you fit into the broader picture. And OKRs help solve that problem. And even today, right? My inbox gets flooded with hundreds of emails a day. Slack messages are overflowing. There's tons of noise. There's tons of distraction. And my North Star is always referencing back to the OKRs, right? Understanding what are my true goals and objectives? Also, what did I sign up for? What did I commit to the team? What am I ultimately held accountable for? And are these things that I'm doing on a daily basis contributing to that broader goal? And they actually give me and they give the whole team the permission to say no to things, which I also think is really powerful. And the last thing that I'll mention is just kind of building into not only every internal conversation I may have in my own head or maybe with my own team, but also just with other teams as well. If Kevin and the marketing team says they maybe need a new piece of software, or we need to do something new to accomplish our objectives, I make sure that I ask the question of what would happen this quarter if we didn't do this? Would you miss an OKR? Would it significantly contribute to your performance in achieving those OKRs? And just always having that top of mind, always asking those questions, just provides the clarity that at least is super helpful for me right now, where on any given day, I could be shuffling between watching my kids, participating in a meeting, sometimes doing those two things all at once, and getting to the end of the day and knowing exactly where I stand, what I'm doing, what I should be focused on. Without OKRs, I wouldn't be able to do any of that.
Yeah, I think so. I was a lot like Joe in that I joined Ally because I had come across the company as a solution to OKRs, which I've been doing in Google Docs and spreadsheets through a few different companies and 6 or 7 years. And the ability to bring it all into one place where you can interact and communicate, but also connect so it directly pulls information from the systems where work is already happening was huge. But now I sound like an Ally commercial, so I'm gonna shift gears. I want to ask Emilie and Joe how you set and manage goals within your company, and no points docked if it's not OKRs. We're trying to find good solutions here. So Emilie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks. I will share my screen if that's okay.
Yeah.
We can find the answer to this together. So let's say what I'm looking for is GitLab OKRs, because if I wanted to know if GitLab was using OKRs, I would do that. And the first result takes us to the handbook page on exactly that. You can see, what are OKRs? How do we use them at GitLab? What are resources on them? How do we format them? And we can go to the fiscal quarter. So right now we're in fiscal year 21, quarter one, which is the cadence we set quarter or goals on, or OKRs on. And you can see exactly what our objectives are, what the KRs for that objective is, and how we cascade that through the org. And again, this is all public. Anyone who wants to can see it and go see what we're looking at. What do you all do at CloudApp, Joe?
Yeah, so we jumped on board OKRs a few quarters ago. I think we're in like our third or fourth quarter, kind of structurally doing that. And we tried out a few different things. We actually are using Ally to kind of manage things. But for us, it's definitely it's a top-down thing. So as a company, we focus on I'm pretty proud of this acronym, so get ready for it. So we focus on ARR, which everyone knows is annual recurring revenue, but it also stands for acquisition, retention, and revenue. So we focus on those ARR, kind of our 3 OKRs that we try and align to, both as a company and then as individual orgs and individuals. So each of our goals or our OKRs line up to the company OKRs associated with those, and we try and develop things that marketing can do to improve retention, and what marketing does for acquisition, and what marketing can do for revenue. So that's how we try and align things. We use Ally to manage all of that, and it's actually been really helpful. Definitely, I get behind sometimes. Like oh shoot, I haven't done anything in Ally for 2 weeks, and I'll feel pretty bad about it. But I get a nice reminder every week to like update my OKRs.
I can have Matt Slack you too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What I was gonna say, Joe. Like the other thing is, or I guess I'll demonstrate extreme humility here. Like we have these same challenges as you and every other customer of ours. Like no shame in saying that. Yes, we are building OKR software and doing it in a great way, but it does not. Like the OKR framework is hard. It's hard to get right. It's not easy. The benefits are giant, right, and huge. But we have the same struggles in terms of check-ins on a regular basis. Like, what are the things that we should be doing weekly versus monthly versus quarterly? Should we be setting these quarterly objectives and monthly objectives, or how do we want these things to roll up? How do they align? Like all those same challenges that you're describing, and that I'm sure Emilie's very familiar with as well. Like we experience all of them too. So I'm there in the trenches with y'all. I feel the pain. I know what it's like. But the flip side too, I see the value and the benefit. And that's the trade-off, at least that we're making internally.
Yeah,
oh, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that was one of the benefits of going from massive company to a small company, is that I am coming in a little bit with scale and background on those things. And it was, really helpful to learn from some people who are very good at it at Adobe and kind of bring those things in. But yeah, we're all human. So it's definitely a struggle no matter who you are.
So that actually ties into a really good audience question we got, which is about alignment. So Jose from Swisscom asked, what is your recommendation to approach a group of about 40 people to run an OKR alignment session when you are all remote? So this is something where, we may have gotten in a room and whiteboarded, a few weeks ago. So how do you manage to keep people focused and interested, and when the risk is losing that focus and participants are in different time zones and in front of a screen. So Matt, we just went through this last week, so I may put you on the spot and ask you first.
Yeah. So yeah, the alignment piece is, it's hard, it's challenging. I can definitely share some of the things that we've done internally, some things that have worked and some lessons learned as well. So the first thing around alignment is, I think, and it may sound obvious, but starting at the company level, right? For every kind of planning cadence that you have, annual, quarterly, whatever it may be, understand and make sure that each department has input and sign off on what those company level objectives are, and then dive into the department level goals and how those are going to ultimately be aligned and kind of roll up to company level objectives. I have personally made the mistake in prior quarters within Ally where I've kind of done those things in parallel, and they have not worked out well. So starting at the company level, then rolling out at the department level is very, very helpful. Force yourself to start planning early. Like if you're on a calendar quarter like we are at Ally, first or second week of March is when these meetings should start to happen, and you should have them wrapped up by now. I will raise my hand and admit we are 90% done with our Q2 OKRs at Ally, but still a couple of stragglers that have not been finalized yet. So don't beat yourself up if you haven't gotten those in the system at all. And then the last thing that I'll mention with alignment is kind of, as you go throughout the quarter on a weekly basis, at least within Ally, commit to the work that you're going to be doing every week. So for us on Mondays, we commit to each other the work that we're going to be doing, what we're going to accomplish over the course of that week, and how it's going to contribute to our OKRs. It's okay to be hard on yourselves during that meeting. That's the whole purpose of OKRs, stretch goals. And then the other thing that we do to also stay aligned but also celebrate is we've got this Friday wins conversation that happens every Friday afternoon, where we then look back on the week and we say, to the whole team, we say, hey, here's some awesome things that we've accomplished. Here's some deals that the sales team has closed. Here's some really new successful campaigns or an awesome webinar that our marketing team has done. Here's some new features that the product team has rolled out. And it's just time for us to celebrate what we've accomplished and understand how those contribute to the goals that we've set up. So those are some things in order to get aligned that we do, at least internally at Ally, to support our own internal process.
All right, so we have a few other questions I do want to get to because we're running short on time here. But Joe, tell me a bit about how at CloudApp you create a virtual replacement for the water cooler conversations and the random run-ins with team members. How do you stay connected with the team over the last month or so?
Yeah, so it's been interesting for sure. We've tried to be proactive about connecting people together. Going from my team was not remote to going basically, fully remote. I initially set up a stand-up meeting, just 5 minutes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that first week. And it was just kind of like, hey, let's just chat, shoot the breeze, connect like we usually do when we first come into the office, see what everyone's working on, how everyone can help each other. And then that was it, really quick. And now we don't necessarily, we've phased away from that. We just have kind of our weekly team meeting, and then we're, connecting on Slack or with, using CloudApp to create videos, or just collaborating on G Suite. And then as a company, we've done a few Zoom lunches. And we actually did this really fun thing on Friday that I got the idea from John Rampton over at calendar.com. It was a virtual scavenger hunt. So it was like working from home scavenger hunt. And I shared it on my Twitter feed, Jody Marty, last week. So if you want to kind of see some of the things we searched for. But it was 10 items in 10 minutes. Stuff like your favorite quarantine snack, what was your panic purchase over the last month. Everyone had random stuff from like a generator to like those Orbi things. I don't know if you played with those Orbis that like absorb water and get kind of squishy. But yeah, it was really fun to connect on the scavenger hunt, do something fun. And then, we all had laughs about it. And then obviously everyone has, their different Zoom background, which is pretty good commentary. But that's kind of how we've tried to connect, is like once a week. It's optional. For the most part, we've had pretty good attendance, but let people connect on their own and then provide those opportunities as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Emilie, quick question from the audience for you. Does Gitlab have company offsites or in-person gatherings at regular intervals? I think we're all wondering if this becomes a longer thing and we move to a remote model to begin with. How you guys do that?
We do. So every 9 months, we have an event called Contribute, where the team, our core team members, our board, and anyone who wants to come comes. And it was supposed to be in Prague about 2 weeks ago. It was canceled. So now our incredible field events team is thinking about how we can do something along the same vein online. But we do get together 1 week every 9 months. And I've gotten the chance to participate in 2. My first was in Cape Town, South Africa, and my second was in New Orleans, Louisiana in the USA. And it is a great way to get to know your team members. And it's not death by PowerPoint. It's not a standard conference. It is, we have a couple keynotes, but about 50% of the time is team member-led workshop. And 50% of the time is an unconference session where people who are interested on a particular subject just kind of get together and chat. The goal isn't to like get a bunch of work done. It is to build relationships with your team members. It's pretty cool.
That is awesome. That is also about all the time we have today. I think this is a topic I could dig on for another 3 or 4 hours with you all, but thank you so much for joining. Emilie and Joe, I know Gitlab and CloudApp are doing some stuff to help folks navigate right now. Emilie, can you share a bit about some of the resources Gitlab has?
Absolutely. So the best place to go is allremote.info. So allremote, one word, .info. That's going to take you to our all remote landing page. There's a all remote ebook there if you're suddenly transitioning your company. Resources, how to improve your meetings, how to onboard, how to hire, all the questions you've got about remote work. If it's not there, we're working on getting it there. So please go, share feedback. My email is my first name @gitlab.com. Please reach out. I'd love to continue the conversation.
Awesome. Thanks. Joe, how about at CloudApp?
Yeah, so we have a few things. We've kind of put out a lot of remote content over the last year or so. Gitlab, I'm sure, has great resources, so maybe check them out first, then go to us. We are also, our pro account has always been free to educators and students. So you can sign up and then connect with our support team if you have a .edu email. We have a pretty robust free offering, but also we've been offering a 50% off discount for pro subscriptions to anyone on this webinar. And the code is just CloudApp Webinar 50. So just do that at checkout and definitely give it a try and see if it is helpful to you.
Awesome. And we'll share all of this in the follow-up email that will include a link to the recording from the webinar as well. At Ally, we're offering our standard 14-day trial for 30 days throughout this crisis to help you contextualize your OKRs and build out a program. But I want to end by thanking you all for joining, both our panelists, but also all of you on the call. Really appreciate the questions, appreciate the involvement, and feel free to reach out to, I think I speak for all of you when I say any of us on social media, or me, Kevin @ally.io. If you have follow-up questions that we didn't get to, I am going to go see if my son ate a bunch of Play-Doh. But thank you again and have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. See ya.